Neanderthal tools found in Longtan, China, which is interesting because Neanderthals aren't really known to have ventured this far east. Their furthest extent is like in what is modern day Kazakhstan, but we find tools that are made in the exact same Kina style that many Neanderthal tools in Eurasia have been built in, made with.
Yeah, yeah, no, this is very exciting. The the tools are a remarkably consistent style of tools that the Neanderthals are known to have made. The Neanderthals lasted from about 400,000 to 40,000 years ago. And during that time period, they consistently produced this one tool design that has been the hallmark of their presence in other places on Earth. And the nearest known archaeological site for Neanderthals is in Kazakhstan, about 1,400 miles away.
So this really pushes the notion of either their territory very far east or it's potentially a group that continued on the style, or it could just be that the while the Neanderthals used this tool style predominantly, maybe another group had picked up its production style. We're not entirely sure, but we do know that tools of this design and of this make have been found in association with Neanderthal skeletal remains, which pretty firmly confirms the association of the tool type with the hominid species effectively. And this comes as tools were recently discovered, which include scrapers, are between 50 and 60,000 years old. So
Yep.
it just shows a particular tradition very, very far from its traditionally associated region. And occasionally these kinds of anomalies do pop up when we look at archaeology and when we look at history, where some things just kind of remain anomalous, and to a degree you have to almost take it with a grain of salt and with a little bit of skepticism just to really suss out any inconsistencies in the research. But it is very much possible, and this Longtan site is, for what we see so far, pretty incredible. And it's kind of interesting because one of the theories that they suggest here is one of my favorites, where the Neanderthals had interacted with the Homo denisovans and had taught them their tool technique, where they then brought it back to their own region and utilized.
Yep, that could be the case. Denisovans were around from about 285 to 25,000 years ago, and these tools date to between 50,000 and 60,000 years ago, at which point the Denisovans would have been in Asia. That's also about the time which Homo sapiens, the currently predominant human race on Earth and the only modern human still alive
I
on
was going to
Earth,
say, I don't like how you say
uh,
currently as if that could be
we will
changed.
be overthrown by the next in line. It is inevitable. Uh, but the time of these tools is also the time period in which Homo sapiens, us human beings, reach Asia and the Pacific. So this is, you know, this cultural adoption theory could have multiple vectors. It could be the Neanderthals did swing further south and east than anyone has ever seen before. It could be the Denisovans, which I think is a very fun way of putting a theory to put out there. It's also just at the edge of when human beings would have been in China.
It's really interesting, and it could just be also independent invention, which can occasionally happen. I mean, in most cases around the world, that's where we get the development of agriculture, was through independent invention. But it also postulates such an interesting thought process in my mind, where you're seeing three different hominid species overlap in a general region, and I could not possibly fathom what that would look like today, because we have so many divisions across like pseudo cultural lines, languages, nationalities. I couldn't imagine what the beef would look like if we were different species. And we know that humans were able to crossbreed with both, subgenres. So I wonder what the interaction would have looked like, what the conversations like. Do you think they would have eventually learned each other's language?
Yeah, it is very interesting. That you know, language also for a lot of this wouldn't be language as we understand it. It would be a lot more like how dolphins talk to each other than like full grammatical, you know, human English or any other language you want to pick.
They're able to see that Neanderthals probably had a vocal language because of the way that their necks and their vocal cords would have developed. We can see evidence that they had the capability to speak like us.
That's increasingly scary.
Yeah, no, well,
This is increasing. I didn't realize that. That is increasing. This is messed up. I'm glad we won.
they
I'm
also
glad we won.
they also had a greater cranial capacity.
Yeah,
They
but
were
it's not about
smarter than us, Column.
it's not about the size. It's about what you got in it. Frontal cortex.
They had bigger brains. But it's just really
Never.
interesting because research like this really can push the fringe of our knowledge. And this is where I think should be an applicable place to exercise some academic skepticism of approaching it with caution, because theories like this I actually truly adore, because I really do like to see when the envelope gets pushed, when commonly accepted theories and processes do end up getting debunked or potentially pushed to their fringes. I think is totally fascinating. But on the same token, you have to credit the research, you have to validate with results, you have to actually make proper conclusions.
Oh
This,
yeah, definitely.
unfortunately, we can't really make a qualitative association with the culture. We could just look at the style and make comparisons, and the fact that it lines up timeline wise and style wise can be an indicator, but it's not a definitive.
Yeah, no. There have been instances in the past, unfortunately, with China, where the state has pushed research to rush itself to conclusions that later turn out to be wildly inaccurate. I believe there was one involving dinosaur feathers.
Oof.
Um, so there is always that, if it happened once, it gets extra skepticism again. And unfortunately, like you said, Justin, this isn't something that's easily independently verifiable. This isn't I discovered a new atom where
But
a lab can go and recreate it.
But on the same token, what we can do with the knowledge is do a comparative analysis and look at some of the examples that we already have, which in Europe and in the UK, they have discovered more than 1,300 stone tools from sites dated between 115,000 years ago and 35,000 years ago, and shows that they do have distinct tool making traditions. And that is one of the things that I love about flint knapping specifically is every strike you make on the tool leaves a scar, leaves a mark, and you can basically tell how someone made a tool by looking at the scars on the rock.
Oh yeah, definitely.
The rocks tell stories, Colin. The rocks tell
Yes, they do.
stories.
I know they do. I just don't like the stories they tell. I do not like the little rocks. They are small and sharp and hard to see.
But when you become astute to it, it becomes the coolest thing when you find a rock that's been retouched. Um, but that's where they're making the connections, and this article does a good job of throwing the possibility out there without making a confirmation, and they do address the fact that no Neanderthal is thought to have ventured that far.
Yeah. I do like the chart too that they have for the different exhibits that they have, like the 3D modeling with the shadow image of what it looks like.
Yeah,
The different, all different. I like that kind of graphic because it shows it all the way around. It shows working on all sides. It shows all the little things you look for when you're dealing with these types of artifacts, between something that was just accidentally percussed in the right way versus something that was worked on.
and this also opens the door for future research to either discredit or revalidate this theory, and that's where I would like to see this coming up. So if we do ever come across a follow up on this, we definitely will do. But let us know your thoughts down below. What do you think of this? Do you think it is Neanderthal, or do you think it's a translation of their techniques? And let us know in the comments. We'll see you guys in the next one.